The woman's hand clutched the phone as she spoke urgently to 911. "I'm telling you, this black kid is causing trouble," she insisted, her voice rising. "Follow every word with a convincing voice." She glanced towards Marcus, a young teenager standing a few feet away, unaware of the storm brewing around him. A peaceful afternoon in Greenfield Park was suddenly interrupted by the screeching of tires when a shiny black SUV stopped near the scene. All eyes turned to the driver's door, which opened and Mayor Evelyn Carter stepped out, anger hidden on her face. Linda gasped in surprise when she realized. The mayor's imposing presence froze the moment, and her voice, gentle yet firm, broke the tension. "The troublemaker you are reporting is my son." In an instant, Linda's certainty shattered. The gravity of her actions becomes clear, the consequences reaching far beyond the park. As we reflect on this real-life story, and subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell for more stories daily need to hear. Hit the subscribe button and let us know where you're watching from in the comments. We want to hear from you. It was a sunny afternoon in Greenfield Park, and a young teenager named Marcus was enjoying the peaceful surroundings. Leaning against an old oak tree, he soaked in the warmth of the sun, savoring the smell of freshly cut grass. Marcus, who was only 14, was simply waiting for his mother to pick him up after a long day at school. Lost in thought, he didn't notice the sharp eyes of a middle-aged woman, Linda, who sat on a nearby bench. Linda's expression grew tense as she observed Marcus. Her mind raced with unwarranted suspicions, fueled by deeply ingrained biases she didn't even recognize. Her lips pressed into a firm line, and she finally stood, walking toward him with purposeful strides. "What are you doing here?" Linda asked, her tone sharp and accusatory. "This is a family park, not a hangout for troublemakers. You need to leave, or I'll call the police." Startled, Marcus stood up, confusion etched on his face. "Ma'am, I'm not causing any trouble," he replied calmly, trying to defuse the situation. "I'm just waiting for my mom. I come here all the time." But his words did little to pacify Linda. Her suspicion only grew, and her face flushed with frustration. Ignoring Marcus's explanation, she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling as she began dialing. "Hello, 911, she said, her voice loud and urgent. "There's a suspicious teenager here at Greenfield Park. I think he might be up to no good." Marcus froze, a mix of fear and disbelief washing over him. His hands trembled slightly as he held them up in a gesture of peace. "Please, ma'am, there's no need for that," he pleaded. "My mom will be here any minute. I promise I'm not doing anything wrong." But Linda was unmoved. Her conviction solidified as she continued describing Marcus to the 911 dispatcher. The teenager could do nothing but stand there, feeling the weight of racial bias in every word she spoke. Little did Linda know, her call would set off a chain of events that would expose the deep-seated prejudice still present in their community. The quiet of the park was shattered by the sound of screeching tires as two police cruisers rolled to a stop. Their flashing lights painted the park in bursts of red and blue, drawing the attention of onlookers. Marcus, standing under the shade of the oak tree, felt his heart race as the officers exited their vehicles with measured steps, their eyes scanning the scene. "What's the problem here?" the taller officer asked, his gaze shifting between Marcus and Linda. Linda stepped forward, her voice laced with indignation. "This boy has been loitering here for hours. I asked him to leave, but he refused. I'm worried about the safety of the families here," she explained, her words painting Marcus as a threat. Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but the second officer raised a hand. "We'll get to you in a moment, son," he said, his tone making it clear that Marcus's version of events was secondary. Taking a deep breath, Marcus kept his hands visible at his sides, remembering his mother's warnings about police interactions. "I'm just waiting for my mom to pick me up," he said steadily. "I wasn't bothering anyone." The officers exchanged skeptical glances. "Do you have any ID?" one asked, his hand resting on his belt. "I'm only 14, sir," Marcus replied, feeling the weight of the situation. Though he remained calm, he couldn't shake the fear that things could escalate, knowing all too well how dangerous such encounters could become for someone like him. The tension in the park was palpable when the low rumble of an approaching vehicle drew everyone's attention. A sleek black SUV rolled to a stop near the entrance, its polished exterior gleaming under the afternoon sun. The officer's demeanor shifted immediately as the driver's door opened and a tall, composed woman stepped out. It was Mayor Evelyn Carter, her presence commanding instant respect and authority. Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him as he recognized his mother. She walked toward the group with a calm yet steely expression, her gaze fixed on the scene before her, her son standing rigidly, flanked by police officers and a visibly uneasy Linda. "What's going on here?" Mayor Carter's voice was measured, cutting through the murmurs of the gathered crowd. The taller officer cleared his throat, his earlier confidence faltering. "Ma'am, we received a report about a suspicious individual." "The suspicious individual," she interrupted, her voice sharp, "is my son." The color drained from Linda's face as the weight of her actions sank in. Mayor Carter's piercing eyes locked onto her. "You thought my son, simply waiting in a public park, was a threat?" she asked, her tone laden with disappointment. Her words hung in the air, leaving everyone speechless, as the reality of their biases came into sharp focus. Mayor Evelyn Carter's gaze swept over the scene, her expression a mix of controlled anger and determination. She stood tall, her voice steady but sharp as she addressed the officers and Linda. "I'd like an explanation," she began, her tone leaving no room for excuses. "Why are my officers detaining my son in a public park?" The taller officer fumbled for words. "Ma'am, we were responding to a call about a suspicious individual." "Suspicious?" Mayor Carter interjected, her eyebrows arched. "What exactly made him suspicious? Was it his behavior or the color of his skin?" Belinda's face flushed as the mayor turned her attention to her. "You assumed my son sitting quietly in this park was a danger. Why? Because he's a black teenager?" The sharpness in her voice caused Linda to shrink back, her confidence crumbling. Turning back to the officers, Mayor Carter continued, "This incident is a glaring example of the systemic issues we face. Too often, bias dictates actions, and the consequences can be devastating." She paused, allowing her words to sink in before continuing. "This is why our police force and community need comprehensive anti-bias training. We must address the prejudices that lead to moments like this, moments that erode trust and harm innocent people." Her words struck a chord with the crowd, many of whom stood in reflective silence. The mayor's commanding presence made it clear change was not optional, but necessary. Marcus stood next to his mother, Mayor Evelyn Carter, still reeling from the whirlwind of events. Just hours ago, he had been enjoying a peaceful afternoon in the park, lost in thought under the shade of an oak tree. Now, his presence had been questioned, his character maligned, and his safety threatened, all because of unfounded assumptions. "I was just sitting here," Marcus said, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "In a matter of minutes, I went from feeling safe to feeling like a criminal. It's not right." His words, raw and heartfelt, resonated with many in the crowd. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the onlookers, while others averted their eyes, grappling with the uncomfortable truth of their own biases. Marcus's experience was a stark reminder of how deeply racial prejudice was embedded, even in their seemingly progressive community. Mayor Carter stepped forward, addressing the gathered crowd. "This incident should force all of us to examine our actions and assumptions," she said firmly. "How many times have we allowed baseless fears to dictate our behavior? How often do we let stereotypes override our humanity? The reactions were mixed. Some nodded in agreement, moved by her words, while others exchanged skeptical glances, unwilling to confront the issue. Linda, the woman who had called the police, stood silently, her face flushed with embarrassment. Mayor Carter pressed on. This isn't just about Marcus. It's about creating a community where everyone feels safe and valued, regardless of their skin color or background. We must do better, and it starts with each of us acknowledging our biases and committing to change. As the crowd dispersed, the atmosphere was charged with contemplation. For Marcus, the moment had been painful, but it also ignited a resolve. He would share his story and help push for the change his community desperately needed. Standing before the crowd, Mayor Evelyn Carter addressed the situation with unwavering resolve. The confrontation at the park had laid bare the painful reality of racial bias, and she was determined to turn this moment into a catalyst for change. "This incident is not an isolated one," Mayor Carter began, her voice firm yet compassionate. "It's a symptom of a deeper, systemic issue that we can no longer ignore. Racial profiling and bias, whether conscious or not, have no place in our community or anywhere else." She took a moment to meet the eyes of the gathered onlookers, ensuring her message resonated. "That's why, effective immediately, I am implementing mandatory anti-bias training for our police force and all city employees. This training is not just a checkbox, it's a vital step toward fostering awareness, empathy, and accountability in our public servants." Her words were met with mixed reactions. Some in the crowd nodded in approval, their faces reflecting hope for progress, while others exchanged skeptical looks, questioning the effectiveness of such measures. Mayor Carter anticipated the doubts. "I know that training alone won't solve the problem," she acknowledged, "but it's a crucial starting point. It's about equipping our officers and employees with the tools to recognize and challenge their own biases before they lead to actions that harm innocent people." She concluded with a call to action for the entire community. Real change requires all of us to confront uncomfortable truths and work together to build a safer, more inclusive society. This is our opportunity to do better for Marcus, for all our children, and for the future of our community. The mayor's words marked the beginning of a broader effort to address the underlying prejudices that had long gone unchallenged. The confrontation in the park became a flashpoint for the entire city, sparking widespread conversations about racial profiling and bias. Town halls were organized to give residents a platform to share their experiences and discuss ways to foster a more inclusive community. Local media covered the incident extensively, highlighting the systemic issues it revealed and amplifying the need for change. For Marcus, the aftermath was both challenging and empowering. While still processing the emotional toll, he found unexpected support in his school's debate club. Sharing his story with his peers, he spoke candidly about how quickly a peaceful afternoon had turned threatening and how it felt to be judged solely by the color of his skin. His courage inspired his classmates, prompting thoughtful discussions about prejudice and privilege. Marcus's voice became a catalyst for awareness, showing that even painful experiences could drive meaningful progress. In the weeks following the incident, the city began taking tangible steps toward healing and progress. Police departments initiated community outreach programs, fostering dialogue and building trust between officers and residents. Local businesses displayed signs promoting inclusivity, signaling a collective commitment to change. One of the most symbolic acts came in the form of a vibrant mural painted in the park where the confrontation occurred, featuring colorful depictions of unity and diversity. The artwork served as a powerful reminder of the city's shared values and aspirations. For Marcus and others, the mural represented more than just art. It was a testament to the community's ability to confront its flaws and move forward together. While the journey toward equity was far from complete, these small but meaningful actions offered hope that lasting change was possible through awareness, empathy, and collective effort. The incident became a wake-up call, challenging the community to confront prejudice and take meaningful steps toward justice. Mayor Evelyn Carter emphasized the urgency of addressing systemic racism, advocating for reforms despite facing resistance from some corners. "This is not just about one incident," she reminded residents. "It's about creating a society where everyone is treated with fairness and dignity." Her steadfast commitment to anti-bias training and community outreach inspired ongoing dialogue about equality. The mayor's determination resonated with many, serving as a reminder that progress requires courage and persistence. The call to action was clear. Change starts with each individual's willingness to confront bias and promote inclusivity. This story highlights the urgent need for empathy, awareness, and action in addressing racial bias and injustice. It's a reminder that change begins with each of us, through conscious efforts to challenge stereotypes and build a more inclusive community. Moments like these reveal the importance of standing against prejudice and fostering understanding, not just in our actions, but in the systems that shape society. By sharing and supporting real-life stories like this, we can spark meaningful conversations and inspire others to join the fight for equality. You are invited to be part of this movement. Share this story, engage in discussions, and commit to making a difference. Together, we can create a world where justice and empathy prevail.